Hi, I'm Ria Sidi, and I'm here with Amy Carlin. Amy in 613. She's a local influencer on Instagram here in Ottawa, and I have the pleasure to speak to Amy today to learn all about personal branding and Instagram.
Oh, thanks, Riaz.
Amy, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started with social media marketing and Instagram.
Great question. I'm basically self-taught. Spoiler alert, when I went to school, none of this stuff existed. So I kind of fell into it by accident while I was doing other careers, realized how much I enjoyed it. Because I'm a people person when it comes down to it. And what I love about social media is it just allows you to connect with so many people. It's like word of mouth, but digital. So you can connect with so many people in so many ways. Like I connected with my neighbor down the street who I had actually never met until we met on Twitter or Instagram a few years ago.
Wow. And so you started with an Instagram account, or like you had Facebook and other platforms like everyone. And when did it go from being kind of just like a regular hobby social media account to like something more serious?
Great question. So about 2015 or so, I'd been working in a career in the federal government communications for a while and enjoyed it. But as I got more and more interested in social media, I realized that there were a lot of limitations around doing social media within the confines of a federal government job. So I started my own platforms as a way to be creative and to go explore some of the things social can do that maybe the federal government wasn't doing way back then. And people just, I don't know, I'm somebody that I guess people just would come to with advice like, did you hear about any new restaurants opening? Where should I go, etc. And I just love keeping in touch with like local small businesses. Again, people person. It's just a way to find out more about what's going on in my community. So I thought by using social, like Instagram, again, word of mouth, I can just share that information with so many more people than if it was like us sitting down having a chat over coffee. So I'd say about 2015, I realized like, hey, I should actually get myself organized and turn this into a platform. So that's when I launched Amy in 613 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and my own blog as well.
Right. And so what is Amy in 613 all about?
Right. So quickest way to sum it up, local and lifestyle.
Okay.
Local because I'm all about Ottawa, just what makes us different. What are you finding here that you're not finding in Toronto or Montreal, which are the big cities that everybody loves to go visiting, but we have so much here that if you just dig a little below the surface, you're gonna find it. Like a garage in my neighborhood that's actually a nightclub.
Right.
That kind of thing, stuff that you don't find out about if you go to like conventional news media sort of thing. And then lifestyle essentially is a way for me to say I talk about whatever I feel like that day. So it might be food because I love food. It might be fitness. It might be travel. When I travel, I like to apply that local lens. So like scratch beneath the surface, beyond the all-inclusive resorts. Like what are the cool mom and pop shops that you're going to find in, I don't know, Tulum, Mexico. So you get away from the beaches and you go have the most incredible food at this place down the street with plastic table and chairs.
Right.
So yeah, it's turned into certainly more than I thought it was going to, but it's a fun ride. We'll see where it goes.
Right. And so like, obviously I follow you and I've noticed that you have a certain like look and feel and kind of style to your images. So tell me about what goes into that.
Right. So when I started, I had no idea, like just to be fully, no idea. Instagram wasn't quite as mature a platform as it is now. People didn't really talk about planning your feed to the same extent that they do now, or using, say, presets to make sure that all your photos have a familiar looking, look to them, similar color palettes. So we're getting to a point now where it's nice to kind of put that extra level of planning and effort in because it shows up in your work. And people start to realize like, I like things that are colorful and light and bright and fun. So whatever I'm talking about, I apply that lens to it so that when you see it, it's me.
Right. And so for people that are looking to build out their personal brand, what are some things that they should be considering when actually going and trying to apply it? Because I find a lot of people, and myself included sometimes, even though I'm a branding guy too, sometimes you don't plan properly and you just jump into it and then you're kind of like, I put all this time and effort into it, or you didn't, and it just, some things that you didn't put effort into work out really well, and some things that you do plan on and go deep on, it doesn't work out. So like, I guess what's that kind of formula that has worked for you?
Yeah, so I guess I would say I haven't found a perfect formula yet. Sometimes I think I have, and then like you say, sometimes you might have a priority where you're like, okay, this is gonna be huge. I'm gonna put 2 weeks worth of work into it and we're gonna see where it goes. And then doesn't necessarily that's the thing about social, it can surprise you. So then you might have some random post. I posted a picture of a pineapple and I got like 1,500 likes. Go figure. Like, you just don't know. But planning is key, content calendar, so that even though Instagram may pick it up and run with the pineapple picture, you at least know that you're covered off, especially if you're starting to get into paid work. You can see where you've got your deadlines, where you've got your payables, all that kind of stuff. And you can also map out your frequency of your posts, because I would say consistency is key. Doesn't matter if you're posting every single day or 3 times a week, do that all the time. Figure out what's the right frequency for you in terms of the amount of time that you have, the amount of work you want to put in. If it's a hobby, if it's something that you want to take from a hobby and turn it into a bit of a side gig where you're making money, maybe passively, or do you want this to replace your full-time career that maybe you're doing now? So each of those, I think, has a different action plan with it. So figure out what you want out of it. Reverse engineer your way there.
So you mentioned a content calendar being important.
Yes.
So what would an Amy in 613 content calendar kind of look like?
Yeah, great question. So I tend to do 3-ish posts a week, 3 to 4, depending on how heavy the time period is. Leading up to, say, Christmas, that's when it's heaviest. I might go up to 5 posts a week. So what I'll do is I'll open up a project management tool, whether it's Google Calendar, Asana, what have you, find what works for you. Lots of free ones out there too. And then color code by platform, so that you can see what platforms you're active on and where you maybe have holes that you need to fill something in. So Facebook, I'm talking about this on this day. Instagram, I'm talking about this on that day, knowing that it's leading up to a full-length blog post on this day.
So a lot of businesses have not really figured out how to leverage Instagram as an advertising vehicle, And this idea of influencer marketing has emerged. Obviously, you're running a side hustle from that. So how would you position it to an established business on how they can get into the action? How can they leverage Instagram influencer marketing or any influencer marketing for their business? Because, if I look at it with that kind of naive lens, I can kind of understand, like, it's just people taking pictures of themselves. So, I know part of it's attention, and wherever the attention goes, you want to follow. But, what are some of the benefits to some of the businesses that you work with when they do a campaign with you? Gotcha.
So benefits for the businesses I work with, essentially what I'm offering them is the demographic that they're either missing out on or looking to grow. So one thing I always recommend businesses do when you're considering an influencer or reaching out to a new influencer is don't be afraid to ask for data, ask for metrics. I 100% share mine all the time. I'll share it with anybody who asks. So that's things like, what percentage of their followers are local, if you're looking for local, or what percentage of their followers are national, or maybe outside Canada in the US. So it very much depends on the business, but they should ask questions just like they were if they were going to advertise with anybody else. Ask about not just the size of their following, but how those ages break down. And then you can evaluate whether that influencer is a good fit for your business or not, whether it's helping you access maybe a market that's been elusive to you or not. Gender breakdowns, it can be, you can go as deep as you like, but essentially if someone doesn't want to share that information with you, for me, that would be a red flag.
Yeah, that's fair. So, what are some of the types of businesses that you've worked with in the past? Or, obviously you have options, right? So, what types of businesses are a good fit for you?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I love food. So I love working with the restaurant industry. La Roma on Preston Street is one of my favorites. It's basically like modern Italian comfort food.
They're quite good. I've been there a few times.
It's so good. And then in food, but also accommodation, Chateau Laurier over here with Zoe's Lounge, their cocktail bar, just fantastic place to
I'll
either.
Have to check it out.
Oh my gosh. You can grab a drink after work, or if you're having like family in from out of town, you just want them to have like just a really great like classic Ottawa experience. It's such a beautiful place to stay. So I work with a lot of hotel partners, especially in the Fairmont family. They're wonderful to work with. So Montebello as well. Really easy to reach, right? It's like less than an hour drive from downtown. It's a great place to get away. And so many of the activities are free when you're staying there, no extra cost, which is nice. You can hang out with that fireplace. It's like 4 stories tall. It's awesome. A lot of local fitness studios. So I work with Iron North, which is where I do weightlifting and personal training, and then Daily Method, which is where I do like bar fitness and cycle. Really, I've worked with a really broad range. Because Ottawa has so much here, and it's it's such a pleasure to be able to share that with more people.
So then, how does We got to fix that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you've talked a little bit about how businesses can use influencer marketing for their business, but let's kind of switch gears a little bit. Let's talk, because you've made the choice to be open on Instagram and talk about some very personal things.
For sure.
So I guess my question would be, how do you decide what you're going to talk about or not?
I think that's a personal decision for each individual that decides to be active on Instagram or decides they want to be an influencer. Everybody's got a different comfort zone when it comes to how much they want to share or what topics they do or don't want to talk about.
Right.
I'm pretty open about just about everything. So like I talk about my brush with skin cancer. I talk about eating disorders. I talk about relationship with food, all that kind of stuff. That's right for me. It might not be right for somebody else.
Sure.
I talk about like self-esteem and self-image and how, like, for me, for a long time, my teeth were part of that. And now I get to work on that. And I'm actually working with Invisalign, which seems crazy to me. And I never in a million years would have thought that was possible, but they found me on Instagram and reached out. So it's, I think it's a personal choice, but what I've found is that because Instagram can be so, can be seen as superficial, like pretty pictures, etc. If you take the time to dig deep and share as much as you want in a caption, can be 5 words, can be 5 paragraphs, people do actually stop and read it.
Is there some, do you ever have difficulty taking on an advertiser for a cause that you may not fully support, or feel like you might be kind of selling out if you were to do a campaign with them?
Right. So I say no.
Okay.
I turn down about 90% of what lands in my inbox.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because if it doesn't feel right, that's going to show up in my content immediately. If I'm wondering about it, it will 100% show up that way to somebody else.
Right.
So if it's given me enough pause to question it, it's not the right fit.
And I think that's a good, because your fans or your followers know that you're not going to sell out on your ethics and principles. So there is a sincere connection, because certainly, it's no secret that there is a business behind it as well.
Definitely.
Right. So how do you balance content in terms of how much content you're putting out that is organic, if you will, versus something that may be sponsored? Yeah,
great question. So I try to make sure that there is a balance. So for example, if I'm doing 3 posts a week, one sponsored, one where it's maybe a PR partner where they're not paying me, but they've maybe sent me something they want me to try, and then one that's just me talking about something like more personal angle. And I think everybody will find the right fit for them depending on what their tone is like. There are influencers who I really admire who even their sponsored content is made incredibly personal and you're just drawn into it. So a lot of it has to do with the execution. So I don't think there's like a hard, fast rule, but I would say disclosure is key.
Sure.
So if I'm being paid to talk about something, you will always see #ad, #sponsored.
Right.
Always,
right.
always. I'm never ever going to try and hide that from anybody, because you should be able to tell. If there's a relationship between me and a brand, you should know the nature of it. If I've been provided something like in a PR package, say face cream, it'll say #gifted or #partner. And if it's just me talking about stuff, you would just see like Amy at 613 or support 613. Sometimes I'll even put #not sponsored just to make it absolutely clear. Because there are certain things that I love that I talk about all the time, to the extent that people think I am now sponsored by the brand, and I'm not. So I just genuinely, my rosé wine that I love, Lola, Peely Lola, they don't pay me, I swear to God, but that stuff's great. It's screw top, it's $14, it's pink with bubbles, you can't go wrong.
So what does the future of Amy and 613 look like?
That is a great question, and I don't know. Because I didn't know I was going to get here.
Right.
So I'm going to see where it takes me. I'm getting choosier and choosier as the years go on. I've really learned to say no to a lot of things, even things that I would love to do, but just to protect my time. Because it can get incredibly time consuming when you get those screen reports from your phone that says, you've been on 16 hours today. You got to put that sucker down, So I'm trying to really dial back and make sure that I'm doing quality over quantity. I used to do 3 Instagram posts a day, as an example, and now I do 3 a week. I used to do 3 blog posts a week, most of them 1,500 words are now. Now I do 2 to 3 a month. So just trying to find that right fit in terms of volume.
So, I mean, that's an interesting point that you bring up in terms of time, right? So how much time goes into creating an Instagram account like yours and at a marketing platform like yours that businesses can work with?
Right. So I would say I put about 30 hours a week into Amy 613, give or take, again, depending on the time of year. Christmas time, that goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Trying to work on leveling those, peaks and valleys out throughout the year a bit. But yeah, I'd say about 30 hours a week on top of my main full-time job.
Wow.
So it can be heavy.
Yeah. So let's just say, there's probably lots of budding Instagram potential influencers in the future. So if you were to kind of talk to them and say, and they were to ask, where do I start? How should I start going about this? What should be my strategy? If you were to start all over again, how would you start?
So I'd start by writing it all down. When I started, I didn't really do that.
Yeah.
So sit down at your laptop and start banging out the image you want to project to people. Who is that person? What's that person like? What are the things about their personality that you think are going to connect with the public? And then what do you want your focus to be? Is it like me where it's mostly local and some lifestyle stuff? Do you want to just do food? One gal I've met locally here who's in Ottawa just does hamburgers.
Right.
Only thing she does, and she does it super well. So you can figure out whether you want to be really, really specific or if you want to be broad. And if you're going to be broad, figure out your angle because when you're broad, it can be easy to be unfocused.
Right. Okay. And then in terms of hashtags, because that's something that puzzles a lot of people,
oh, my
right?
word, yes.
So how do hashtags on Instagram work in terms when you put a hashtag in a post, what hashtags do you use? How many? Are there too many?
Right.
Because that puzzles a lot of people.
Great question. So between us, I'm not convinced hashtags work anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, depending on what those hashtags are and depending on what the Instagram algorithm is doing from week to week.
Right.
I've had posts where if I go in my back end, I can see I got 600 clicks from hashtags. I've had posts where I see I've got 3 clicks from hashtags using essentially the same set of hashtags.
Wow.
So to me, that really means content is key. If you have great, consistent, well-executed content, both in the visual and in your captions, that's what's going to connect with people because hashtags can be tricky.
Right. So in terms of the algorithm, if hashtags are not as prominent and obviously content is still the king and so what are some other elements that a new Instagram person should be thinking about in terms of?
Great question. Stories for sure.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed over the past year and a half is my initial reach for my posts that I share in my Instagram feed will have a lower reach than all of the stories that I share that day.
Right.
So for me, it's critical to use my stories to drive people to my post, to let them know that I just launched a new giveaway with one of my partners, or that I just got back from a trip to Peru and I'm sharing a couple pictures of my favorite places that I think they would enjoy most if they get down there.
Right.
So figuring out what you can use within that platform to drive people where you want them to go.
Right. And okay, so you do know that I run an agency and we do a lot of Instagram ads as part of it. What do you see being kind of the future of Instagram on both the organic and the advertising side? Because Instagram's blowing up, right? And it continues to. There's no sign of that slowing down for now.
Yeah.
So if you're on the what are your predictions on the advertising and the organic side?
Great question. I think time will tell. I'm wondering when people will hit kind of their fatigue point for advertising on Instagram.
Right.
And I don't mean that in terms of sponsored posts, but in terms of the volume, the quantity of ads that Instagram drops into your feed when you're scrolling through.
Yeah.
Because I think we're going to hit a wall soon where people are just done with it.
Yeah.
As an example, I usually don't see my own sister's content anymore. I have to go through and add her to my close friends, otherwise I will never see what she posts.
Right.
But certain advertisers I get hit with all the time.
Right.
So I think we'll see how that plays out. But in terms of sponsored content, I think it's just going to be more and more critical to be really personal. If you care enough about something to be paid by that brand, give your personal angle on it. Why is it that you felt led to partner with that brand? Maybe it's a travel experience and it's somewhere that, I don't know, your family, went to years and years ago and it's a chance for you to revisit that. But I find that personal angle, at least for me, it helps people feel like they get to know me a little bit, and they do. If I run into somebody getting, I don't know, a donut at Suzy Q, they'll be like, oh yeah, you posted that thing about Peru and I've been trying to go there. Like, it really gives you a chance to connect in a way that up to this point, conventional advertising didn't.
Okay. Well, Amy, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share all your knowledge about Instagram. And if you want to check out Amy Carlin, where can they find you and follow you, Amy?
So I'm Amy613 on all platforms. So Amy613 on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and Amy613.com.
Thank you so much, Amy. We learned a lot. I know I learned a lot. And
thank
I like
you.
to think I know a bit already, but I know everyone out there really, truly appreciates you kind of opening the doors to what it's like to be an Instagram influencer. So
it's
thank
my
you so
pleasure.
much.
Thanks so much.